When looking at the corporate racial equity agenda in Europe, it is paramount to also consider the legal framework that exists and is mostly consistent within the EU. It encompasses 6 and sometimes more core dimensions of diversity, and also along all the steps of the employee life cycle, from recruiting to retention, as well as the employee experience that is often referred to as the perception of inclusiveness or the feeling of belonging. Also, when we transpose the racial equity conversation from the US to Europe, we should also adjust its framing accordingly. For good reasons, in the US is used to frame it as BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And what a European umbrella organization for anti-racist organizations recommends is using ethnicity and origin in Europe. And make no mistake, this is not a blind spot, and it's also not avoiding to call it racism or anti-racism work. It is a learning of European history and also a reflection of the current realities and needs. In recent years, I have noted a pattern that seems to suggest that US-based corporations are applauded for the many things they do in diversity, whereas the Europeans are always considered to be behind and not to be doing enough. Our analysis do not support that narrative. Instead, what we see is that over 25 years, the European D&I agenda has steeply increased and also has developed an enormous breadth. The public acknowledgement, however, mainly goes to or through 2 types of platforms. One are the special interest partnership platforms for example, gender or age or disability or LGBT or anti-racism. And the other type is the European diversity charters that now exist in 26 countries. The latter have organized, for instance, last year in 2020, a diversity week that focused on anti-racism and ethnicity and origin across the EU. And this year, a diversity month is even happening with, among others, the same focus. And the thousands of activities and events and campaigns and other stuff that is happening, they are a reflection of the corporate agenda in this field. One of the new things we have seen in recent years is that C-level executives are taking positions and joining the conversations here. And with the best intentions, they try to frame it only as a human value topic and not consider the business case, and they think they do the right thing there. However, unlike in society, a business-based storyline must provide the intrinsic sense-making, the why, of a change process that also addresses existing blind spots. Because, for example, in multinational corporations, there is often the notion that because they are so multinational with hundreds of nationalities working for them, there is no bias there, and they don't see necessarily the bias that exists in the space of racial and ethnic diversity, which does exist to quite some extent. What we do see is that some companies are intensifying their very resource demanding activities in special interest activities and campaigning, like International Women's Day, Gay Pride, etc. And very often they are also kind of hiding in larger partnerships like the platforms that I mentioned before. But others are really focusing D&I now on an impactful change process, and they really combine the amplified voices of minorities with their business priorities. And with this, they construct an ongoing improvement process that generates both impact, progress, but also benefits for everybody involved.